Well, hello, everyone. It's great to be with you today on the first day of the Defense Innovation Summit. We're about halfway through. We've had a plethora of wonderful, brilliant speakers sharing insights, experiences, and recommendations for ensuring that America remains the strongest military, political, and economic power in the world, which is what we're all about here. And we appreciate each and every one of you being here, being part of this discussion. Would love to include you. If you've got someone that might want to be a speaker or a panelist, we'd love to have you. We're going to bring up Ben McNally, a young intern. I called him AI, amazing intern. I just gave him that name just now, make him blush. Anyway, Ben has been fantastic. He's been a rock star with us. He's brought on a lot of great people. He secured Admiral Bobby Inman for us last week. And if you're looking for somebody brilliant to join your organization, I think when he graduates from the LBJ school, he will be available. So please reach out to Ben. And I'm going to turn it over to Ben to make some introductions. And I really want to say thank you for putting this together, Ben.
Hey, David, thank you so much for the kind words. It's an honor to be here with you and with Captain Supko. And I want to thank you all for tuning in to the America's Future Series Defense Innovation Summit. People in the special operations community are known for their humility. So instead of letting Captain Supko introduce himself, I'm going to do it for him. So he currently serves as the director of the Department of Defense Trusted Capital Program and reports to the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Industrial Policy and the Chief Information Security Officer for the Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment. In this capacity, he leads the program's whole of government strategy to protect and promote the integrity of the defense industrial base by reducing adverse private sector investment, financing, and intellectual property theft. He received his commission from the United States Naval Academy and began his naval career as a surface warfare officer, making 2 deployments to South America and the Caribbean from 1999 to 2001. After the tragic events of September 11th, he was selected to attend and successfully graduated SEAL training. His assignments in Naval Special Warfare include 3 deployments to Operation Iraqi Freedom with SEAL Team 5 as Assistant Platoon Commander, and with SEAL Team 7 as Task Unit Commander. Additionally, he executed a tour at Naval Special Warfare Group 11 as both Operations Officer and Chief Staff Officer. During his tour at Naval Special Warfare Group 11, he deployed for a 4th time to the Special Operations Joint Task Force Afghanistan as Director of Sensitive Activities. He currently serves as a captain in the Navy Reserve and has commanded Naval Reserve SEAL Team 17, Naval Reserve Special Operations Command Pacific, and currently serves as the commanding officer of the Naval Reserve Special Operations Command. Additionally, he serves on the Secretary of the Navy's National Navy Reserve Policy Board and is a 2021 White House Presidential Innovation Fellow. In his civilian capacity, he is a 2-time startup founder, having co-founded Municio.com and PatriotList.us. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Economics from the U.S. Naval Academy, a Master of Business Management from the Stanford Graduate School of Business, a Master of Global Business Leadership from the University of San Diego, and a Master of National Security and Cyber Policy from the National Defense University's College of Information and Cyberspace. Please join me in welcoming Captain Supko to the America's Future Series Defense Innovation Summit. Welcome.
Thank you so much. That was a mouthful. I think if I would have said, I usually go with, I was in the Navy for a bit, then I went to school, then I started a couple companies, and now I'm back working for the government. So we try to keep it simple, but I really appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Absolutely.
I'm really looking forward to speaking to everybody about DoD's new Trusted Capital program.
Sure. And I think that your career track is fascinating in the sense that you have run the gamut from academia in your time in undergraduate and as a graduate student, in the military, as a startup founder, and now as a civilian employee, albeit still serving in the Navy Reserve at the Department of Defense. And to me, it's very emblematic of the way that the United States needs to approach defense innovation. For a while in America, we've had this discourse that focuses on whether or not the government should solve problems, whether or not the private sector should solve problems. And it's emerging, or a lot of people are starting to think that that is really a false choice and that both need to partner together. In your experience, what does that look like and how is it most successful seeing both the private sector and the public sector come together to solve problems that cross both sectors?
Yeah, I could not agree with you more. It reminds me of my reading of the Federalist Papers and the same arguments that John Jay, Alexander Hamilton were making back then to the nation about the importance of a strong central government. There was the Anti-Federalist Papers who had their argument as well. But inevitably, without a solid public-private partnership to defeat our adversaries, we're going to continue to pull each other apart. And that is the downfall of republics from past that we as a nation don't want to go down, in my opinion.
Certainly. Now, in one of your LinkedIn content articles about defense innovation, you quoted Niccolo Machiavelli in talking about trying to get people to understand new paradigm shifts and new ways of doing things. How do you see people in both the defense establishment and the tech community and other legacy contractors understanding the way that new business needs to be done in this new world that we live in?
Yeah, that's a great question. And although I think Machiavelli is poignant on some of his points, I think that he lacks understanding in other places. But that being said, the quote you speak of revolved around innovation and the difficulty that innovation has when pushing up against an entrenched set of players. In this case, you have on one side the early stage innovation ecosystem, right, which has sprouted from Silicon Valley to Austin to Boston, New York City, and some other really great places around the nation. And that's a culture of return on investment, moving fast, and solving problems and iterating quickly. When that pushes up against a bureaucracy, which was intentionally set to move slow, which was intentionally set to have lots of oversight, and inevitably was designed during a time which is not like the time we live in today, with very clearly defined stovepipes, really the only discussions happening at the very senior levels, lacking that cross functionality, which really defines some of the greatest corporations that our country has today.
Sure. Now, in the SEAL community, you all are known for having a, quote, tendency to break the rules and a healthy disrespect for authority, unquote, for the retired SEAL Master Chief. Now, within the SEAL community, in a community that is sort of a community unto its own within the Navy and within the military, you all have had a lot of opportunities to innovate, a lot of opportunities to develop tactics, a lot of opportunities to develop new technology outside of the traditional tried and true ways of military acquisition that were really developed during the Cold War. How do you see that way of acquiring and developing and sustaining new technologies and tactics being scaled out through the broader military?
Yeah, so I think that inevitably the wars we fought over the past 2 decades will not be the wars that we fight in the future. That the clear understanding of both our military, our civilian leadership, and our industry leadership as to what our adversary sees as strategically important across a long time frame versus a very short time frame that that Wall Street focuses on, or our 4-year presidential cycle focuses on, is going to be imperative. The adversaries that we have now understand the gray zone. Special operations works in the gray zone all the time, from sensitive activities, working with the intelligence community, to other things that we do below the level of armed conflict to prepare a potential battlefield. The enemy is aware of that as well. There's a really interesting book called Unconventional Warfare, written by 2 PLA, that's People Liberations Army colonels, written in 1999, discussing about the American strategy, global strategy, and its faults, and how to attack those faults, how to attack those seams, to operate inherently in the gray zone, so they never have to go to war, because they can create a scenario in which they would know that we or allies would not succeed. and thereby make it not worth it for us to actually go to war. And we see this happening economically. We see this happening around the world through massive Chinese sovereign wealth fund that's executing effectively through the Belt and Road strategy in Africa and elsewhere in Southeast Asia and South America. These demonstrate a clear understanding of strategies that are outside of the traditional military industrial complex. And it's imperative, as we said before, that we have this type of public-private partnership to recognize that these things are happening around us. So I know we're going to get to trusted capital in a minute, but I always like to talk about the why did DoD decide that something like the trusted capital program was necessary. And I'll give it to you in four real problem areas. First is the massive consolidation of the defense industrial base. As the technologies that are going to drive economic and national security continue to gain steam, you're seeing that fewer and fewer companies are actually willing to do business or want to do business with the government. The sales cycles are too long. The acquisitions processes are painful. The accounting processes have to be changed. And this just doesn't work for startups. Startups need to move fast. They need to gain market share, product market fit, and the time and effort that it sometimes takes to pivot to fall into line with what the government acquisitions process looks like doesn't work for everybody. So you have the consolidation of the defense industrial base, which also allows actually a bigger target with less players for our enemies to get involved in, which moves into our second problem set, which is our foreign ownership, control, and influence within supply chains. In order for us to understand where our enemy exists within our supply chains, from the consolidation of raw materials like cobalt or rare earth metals, through finished products, through where they are in key logistics nodes around the world, well, we need to be able to ask really poignant questions to industry, which right now, in many cases, we're not even allowed to do that for any companies that have less than a $5 million contract with the government, right? That needs to change. The foreign ownership, control, and influence within our early stage capital markets, we're wholly unaware of. We know that federal foreign direct investment is heavy, starting to move in through the Caymans, and it's actually decreased, obviously for COVID and because of FIRMA and some of the CFIUS regulations, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And you saw a massive increase in Chinese foreign direct investment from 2010 through 2017. But we're once again unaware of where that money is at play unless we're able to ask the right questions. And it brings us to an equally important problem set, which is that we have the greatest financial markets in the world, absolutely bar none. And if we don't figure out how to align those financial markets for economic and national security, which are synonymous, then we're going to be in trouble. Right now, our early stage innovation ecosystem, the key nodes are those venture capital funds out there who are funding the next greatest pieces of technology that exist. But many of them, for fiduciary reasons, are focused on software. As Mark Andreessen said, software will eat the world, and it is. And software has margins around 80%. So it is their fiduciary responsibility to gain return on investment for their investors. And if that investment's going to go into a software company that's potentially going to have 80% margins, well, that's a better bet than into a hardware company that's going to have at best 30% margins, if not less. So we have to figure out how to flip that on its head and to incentivize effectively our capital partners to start looking at hardware investments so we can reshore some of this critical capability back into the United States or amongst our allies so we compete more effectively, because our adversary is heavily subsidizing their industries. We have to compete. Over.
Absolutely. And one last question. Given the role of cyber espionage, the role of financial markets, and as you mentioned, software, what role do you see emerging cryptocurrency markets playing in these threats of economic espionage?
Yeah, I am very long on crypto for economic reasons, and I think you're going to see, and you are seeing, a whole new swath of companies. And I think it's going to be incumbent that we as a government embrace that, because without clearly understanding what the threat vectors are within the crypto world, then all we're doing is screaming at the moon, instead of finding ways to understand how to operate in those markets in a better way.
Fantastic. Captain Supko, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your past, present, and continued service to our great nation. And thank you for joining the America's Future Series Defense Innovation Summit. It was an honor to have you.
Thank you so much. Are we taking any questions, or are we good?
Let's see. Well, it looks like you probably answered everybody's questions, but we really do appreciate your time, and we look forward to possibly collaborating with you again in the future. And we wish you and your team at Trusted Capital all the best in your very, very important work. Thank you.
Outstanding. Everybody have a great day. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Colin.
Fantastic. Well done. Thank you, Ben. We appreciate you greatly, both of you. That was an outstanding conversation, an important one. And with that, we're going to take about a 5-minute break.